Welcome back to PRN Test Drive. I'm James, and this is the 2025 Genesis G70. Now, right at the beginning of 2024, Niall showed you the G70 of 2024 with the 2.5T all-wheel drive trim. I have spent my entire week with the 3.3T all-wheel drive Sport. So that means I get the 3.3-liter V6 twin-turbo engine, and it is phenomenal. Now, the as-tested price for the Genesis G70 that I've spent a week with is around that $65,000 Canadian mark, which I think is actually really good and a really competitive price because you simply can't get any of the German cars that are equipped like this that have the same amount of power for the same price. You're always going to be a little bit over. That's something that Niall demonstrated when he took a look at it. But what was interesting about my time with the Genesis G70 is that I wasn't reminded of any German brands at all. Now, I was actually reminded of two vehicle platforms in particular that I've been able to spend a considerable amount of time with. One being the Acura TLX Type S, and the second one, bear with me, this might be a bit controversial, the Kia Stinger Tribute Edition, because it had kind of the same V6 twin turbo, feels really the same. Those are the two vehicles that this car really reminds me of, and get this, they're also similarly priced with kind of similar features. So before I compare the three and kind of talk about all three as much as I can, I want to tell you about this version of the Genesis G70. So let's start with under the hood. We have the twin turbo 3.3-liter V6. That is giving us 365 horsepower, 376 pound-feet of torque with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and of course, it's all-wheel drive. So let's take a look at the highlights for the Sport trim. This is the best version of the G70 that you can get. So we get a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster, which, as you saw in Niall's video, it was a mix of digital and analog. We've got the full digital right here. I've also got a Sport Tune electronically controlled suspension, and I've got a limited slip differential as well. I've got Napa leather seating with the Sport quilting included. I've got a variable exhaust valve, and I've even got a heads-up display. So let's take a look at something like the TLX, something that this car does remind me of. It's a 3-liter turbo V6 that's giving us 355 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque. It also has an electronically controlled limited slip differential. It's got leather interior. It's got a digital gauge cluster. It's got everything that you could want, and it's also worth right around $66,000 Canadian. So it's a little slower, a little bit more expensive, but when you're talking about, like, you know, a couple of $1,000s, these things are really close, and I feel like that was a really sporty driving experience as well. Now let's look at the Kia Stinger, right? This is where it gets interesting because the Kia Stinger under its hood has a 3.3-liter twin turbo V6 giving us 368 horsepower, 376 pound-feet of torque. So the Kia Stinger's engine is super close to the one that we find on the Genesis G70. So for me, just being reminded of those vehicles, I don't think is a crazy take at all. And it's also $64,000, so a little bit cheaper than the G70. Again, we're talking about $1,000, $2,000 here. It's not astronomically crazy. I think that's where this thing gets compared the most. So as you can see, it's winter here in Canada. I've gotten to test the G70 in the winter conditions, but it's really, really cold. So I'll tell you about more of the G70 and the things that remind me of the TLX and the Kia Stinger, but let's do that from the inside. Let's get on the road. I need to get warm. All right, so on the road now with the Genesis G70, with that twin turbo V6, I'm gonna show it to you right away because I wanna talk about how the Genesis drives, and then I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about how the other two compare and how the other two drove and kind of why they reminded me so much of each other. So let me turn this corner right here. Should be able to do that. So yes, sir, let's do this. And let's put it into sport mode with the traction control off. It's a bit wet, so we're gonna be careful. We're gonna give it some beams anyways. Here we go. That's ridiculous. Okay, so that's a ridiculous amount of speed, right? Like, and it kind of catches you off guard because you don't expect it to have that much to it. But okay, twin turbo V6, holy moly, that's really quick. And also, there is a variable exhaust, but I feel like the more sound I hear is the pumped in sound, which honestly I don't mind because look at the new Dodge Charger. It's got a literal speaker in the back for exhaust noises. So if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. I'm gonna stop, disliking that stuff and just kind of be like, you know what? It doesn't sound like a weird spaceship, kind of sounds cool. Hopefully the mic is picking it up so you can hear it. I don't hate it, I think it's nice because I really don't hear too much of the exhaust noise from inside the car, so I'll take hearing a little bit of it from the inside. Now, like I said, straight line speed, absolute monster. The all-wheel drive is really going to help, and I'm not driving in good conditions. Like, it is not, there's some ice out here and stuff like that. Usually I'll drive in my comfort mode, which has everything Sport Plus, but traction control remains on, especially in the winter. I just want to be safe, right? But straight line speed is definitely there. You know, the noise is definitely there. If you're okay with the pumped in audio, it's a beast. I mean, it's just a little monster of a car. It's so much fun. Like, I know that you could easily do the 2.5T all-wheel drive, have just as much fun, get just as much feature, and save a little bit of money. But I'm telling you, if you can option your G70 with the 3.3 liter twin turbo V6, please do it. Do yourself a favor and do it, because it's so wonderful. The adaptive suspension is really good as well. I really feel comfortable in comfort mode, but honestly, even when I'm in Sport Plus mode, Sport mode, I'm still extremely comfortable. I don't feel myself bouncing around. The seats are extremely comfortable. All of the technology in here is really good as well. And I think that this car just handles very nicely. I think I always have control over it. Even when I'm driving through snow and ice, the all-wheel drive system is really good. Like I said, I do have a limited slip differential, so that's gonna help things along the way, especially when you're talking sportiness. So that's good news too. You like to hear that. I have a heads-up display, which is nice. I love the digital gauge cluster. I've kind of got turn signals in my gauge cluster as well, which the Kia Stinger also has as well, something that you get on the top end of a Kia Stinger. So there you go. There's our similarities coming in here. Now, the TLX also has a limited slip differential, but it's electronically controlled, so I think it makes it a little bit better. But I want to finish up with the G70 thoughts first, or just kind of what it is. I like the leather interior. I like the red. The red is a very nice touch, right? Like super, super nice. Red everywhere. I've got memory seat settings. I've got ventilated seats. It's just got the works, right? And I guess the thing that I feel is a little bit on the outdated side when it comes to G70 is, you know, since I drove the GV80 Coupe, it's got, you know, the big one screen right across everything. I would have liked to see the G70 get that as well. I think it deserves it. I think the tech is really cool. Don't get me wrong, this setup that I have with the digital gauge cluster and having the screen separate is really, really good. I just want things to stay in line. I want the sedans to get as much love and attention as the SUVs, because I know it's a very much an SUV market, but I still want to have things be the same. So let's talk a little bit about the ride quality with all three. So I find the Genesis and the Kia Stinger have very similar ride qualities. The Kia Stinger is obviously a lot bigger, so I like it for that. I like that it has a lot more space in the back, in the trunk, just everywhere. It's just a bigger sedan. But I find the TLX has pretty much the same room here as the G70. But ride quality wise, I feel like the G70 and the Kia Stinger have the upper hand. While the TLX is still very comfortable. It's got the adaptive suspension and everything. It's just more sporty oriented. And that kind of brings me into my next point. The TLX handles the best out of the three because it has an electronically controlled limited slip differential. I feel like that helps you in corners. And I just feel like the feedback from the TLX steering wheel that I got was a lot better. Like, I just feel like the TLX, when I compare it directly with the G70, feels a lot faster despite having less horsepower. It's a very interesting thing. You really have to drive them both to really be able to get a good idea of that. And I unfortunately have driven the TLX quite a bit, driven the 2024 and the 2025. So I kind of have a good idea of what's going on. I just think that Honda and Acura are so good at dialing in their steering. It is one of the best handling vehicles, sedans, that I have ever been in. Like, it is really, really up there with the big boys, I think. And not to say that the Kia Stinger and the G70's handling are bad. I just feel like when it comes to all three, the Stinger and the Genesis are more, you know, luxury with a sporty advantage, whereas something like the TLX Type S is just more sporty with luxury, right? They kind of, you know, the TLX puts the sport above the luxury a little bit, and the other two brands kind of put the luxury above the sport, which is fine. You kind of get the best of both worlds. And all three of these cars have V6 engines, and they're really, really close in price. I just think, you know, it's really cool. They've all got heads-up displays. They've all got built-in Apple CarPlay. They've all got heated seats, heated steering. They've all got adjustable seats. They've all got comfortable seats. The ride quality is all really good. Like, they are so close, in my opinion. It's just going to depend. You really have to, if you're looking for a car in this segment, you really have to drive. Those are the three I would recommend you take a look at, because they're, like I said, so similar in price, quite similar in horsepower. You really got to take a look at it because they do configure their interiors quite different. It's just, I think it's really cool to have three cars like that, sedans, because usually the focus is on SUVs. To have three sedans, you know, feel the same and be able to compare them with that nice monstrous V6 underneath the hood. They all do it differently, but they're all quite fast in their own right. So to end things off, to round things out, let's see what I'd like the most. So I think after spending a week with all three vehicles, the TLX being, you know, the one that I've spent maybe a little bit more time in, I have to, and this maybe again is going to be controversial, but the Kia Stinger will always have my heart when it comes to a V6 in a sedan that has a lot of space, or a decent amount of space that also has some luxury items inside of it. The Stinger has my heart. It's had my heart since it came out. I don't know, back in like 2018 or 2015. I'm not sure when. No, I don't remember when exactly they came out. But it's been on my list of cars that I might potentially own one day. Even though they don't make it anymore, I just absolutely love that car. I think it's phenomenal. I think it does everything well. It's the car that I would choose if I had to go all three. If I had the choice of all three and an unlimited budget, I think I would go with the Kia Stinger in that case. But let me know which one you would go with. You know, it's all opinion based, because like I said, they all have V6s. They're all very, very powerful. They all are sporty. They all have luxury items. Look, they're all so close. They all have like genuine leather inside of them as well. They're all very upgraded, right? They're very upgraded, and that's why you're gonna pay 60 grand for them. I just, yeah, the Stinger has my heart. And don't get me wrong though, I still absolutely love the TLX Type S, and I really, really have enjoyed my time with the Genesis G70. What a machine this thing has been. It's been so nice to live with, the all-wheel drive, the sportiness of it. You really don't expect it, because, you know, it just doesn't look like it could go that fast, because you hop inside and you're just flooded with, you know, a luxury feeling, because a lot of the stuff looks luxurious in here. The whole car looks luxurious. You're not really expecting it. And then you stomp on the gas, and the twin turbo V6 puts you back in your seat, and you're just like, oh, okay. So not only is this thing extremely luxurious, but it's extremely quick, and it's earned every bit of performance that it's get, and it's earned every great review that it's gotten so far. This is still a great platform. Thank you so much, Genesis, for still making sedans, because I'm kind of like Niall in the fact that I don't mind SUVs, but I also would prefer a sedan if I could get one, right? Sedans are where it's at for me too, and I hope to see Genesis put more emphasis, maybe a more sporty version. I feel like there's an option to go hybrid here, and I hope they do it in the future. But if you own a Genesis G70 or you're looking at the new ones, let me know what your thoughts are overall. I really want to know what you guys think. That's going to about do it for my time with this video and my time with the Genesis G70. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe here to PRN Test Drive. And with that being said, I will see you in the next week. See you in the next car. Take care.